Welcome back to another episode of Transitions from War. I'm your host, Mike Ergo, a Marine Corps veteran. I've returned from Iraq and faced the challenges of PTSD, addiction, and grief to create a new life that is balanced and healthy in mind, body, and spirit. I'm joined by fellow Marine Rich Strayling, and together we talk about our journey to mental and physical health through endurance sports. Each episode will share some of our journey or interview inspired veterans and subject matter experts to help us find that purpose and connection we all crave. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email me at mike@transitionsfromwar.com. And if you enjoy the show, consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio. As always, thanks for listening, everyone, and let's get to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Transitions from War. I'm your host, Mike Ergo, and today we got an awesome guest, Ryan Burnett, and we're talking about pattern pros, and we're talking about shotgunning patterns, and we're talking about being a vet, man. So how you been, dude? What's up? I'm glad to meet you and glad that it's finally, after a few takes, it's taken off. We'll get able to meet on the podcast.
Yeah, no, doing great. Can't wait. It's always nice to BS and with other vets and just kind of hear what everybody else is doing. Yeah, it took us a few tries.
Yeah, I know.
But
for everybody on the show, we tried to meet up a couple weeks ago and it just was not working out. We tried my work internet, which sucks ass. So lesson learned. Here we are though, man. But for those of you just listening on audio, Ryan's got a sweet firefighter mustache. Not quite the full handlebar, but you know, it's definitely not in regs for the United States Marine Corps, which I love.
not even close.
Yeah, right on, man. So yeah, I guess we jump right into it, man. So tell us about yourself, who you were with when you were in, and like we'll go from there.
So I was in from 13 to 21. I was an 0351, which does not exist anymore because the Marine Corps is freaking stupid.
I did not know that, man. They got rid of snipers and 51s.
Yeah, well, I think the snipers they've like not reclassified them, but it's like they've like scout. I don't know. They've mixed that up, but they got rid of 51s back in 20.
Wow.
And when I was with, jump forward a little bit, but when I was with 3-5, we were the experimental battalion. So we had some different comm gear. I think everybody had suppressors. Pretty much for the most part, everybody had M27s. We had the Carl Gustav.
Wow. Oh, nice.
So we had a bunch of different stuff. Like we had different squad makeups. And so when I got there, like one of the first things one of the other 51s said to me was like, "Yeah, dude, we don't have assaultmen." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what am I doing here if we don't have assaultmen?" And he's like, "I don't know, dude. Like half the platoon is like, or half the squad is it's like tasked out to be 11s." And I was like, "Well, that sucks."
Yeah.
And so for the first like 2 months I was there, I was with machine gunners. Like we were going to the field. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Right.
And guns is like, yeah, we're a guy short. And I was like, screw it, let's do it, boys.
Yeah.
give me the 240. And so I did that for a couple months, and then they're like, hey, we're disbanding assault for the deployment. So I went and I was an 11 for the 31st MU, and I had a good time. I really liked my platoon. I liked my squad. So I had a good time, and but it was different. And then like we filled out multiple surveys, and then we got back, and all of the squad leaders and NCOs, we all sat down with, it was like 4 civilian contractors for like 8 straight hours. Like we all had laptops, like filling out surveys. So I was like, this is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, and we're like, don't get rid of 51s. Not every single person doesn't need an M27. Numerous things. And then some of our leadership went to Quantico, like my LT, our CO, and I'm sure a bunch of other officers. And he gets back, 4 or 5 days later, whatever it was. I'm like, hey, sir, like, what's going on? He goes, all right, so everyone's getting M27s, 51s are gone. And I'm like, all right, so everything that we told them that we didn't want.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I was just like, why did we waste all those hours of all that stuff? And I was like, you're giving rockets to either 11s, who, as you know, are the brightest of the bunch.
Yeah, yes, we are.
And then you're giving them to engineers. And sorry for all the engineers that are potentially listening out there. I didn't have a whole lot of great interactions with them.
Yeah.
Several calls to EOD because of them. I know there's some great engineers out there, but the ones that I dealt with were always rough. So I was like, you're giving rockets to people who that's not their like bread and butter. Yeah. And I was like, for every range I ever did, it was like rockets are that's the most important piece here. Like, because if they don't take out the bunker, then, and so that was frustrating. So it was like, all right, well, I don't know. I guess I'll be an 11. But to backtrack, I was out in 1-3 out there in Hawaii for from 13 to 16. So I was there about 3 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Gone a lot from there, and then went to 3-5. Did the 31st meet with them. So I was only with them for just over a year. And then I was a instructor for a task force that was going to Iraq. So we did, I think there was like 8 of us, 8 or so instructors, 10 instructors that we were all grunts and some recon guys. And we were training the task force on basic shoots and basic grunt stuff. And then I got a call one day. It was like, hey, your orders are up. And I was like, no, they're not. I'm like, yeah, you're going to Edson Range. And like, this was like, I think a Thursday. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be there tomorrow.
That's wild, dude. What a turnaround.
Yeah. And I was like, well, shit. Okay. So I went and met Sergeant Major. And then I think it was the next day or that Monday, I reported in. So I was on the rifle range as a coach, and then the CMT for my last one more than 2 years there, which was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding, man. What a turnaround. Yeah, so you're teaching recruits how to shoot, or were you doing like units that come through to? Okay.
No. Oh yeah. I was dealing with recruits, which was it's not not nearly as stressful as being a drill instructor, but you definitely got aspects of it.
Yeah.
And I had my kids I still have two small kids, but they were a few years younger at the time. And it's like I never left work, because up until the rifle range, recruits are like, I've been told everything, what to do, how to do, when to do. And I'm like, hey, you got to think for yourself here. Like,
yeah, it's a turnaround.
You have to. And they're like, they look at you so confused. And it was like, all right, dude, like, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're not going to do. And then they would repeat it back to you. And I was like, all right, so you're good. Yes, sir. All right. And then it would be 10 seconds later, and they do the exact fucking opposite. And you're like, what the hell? And then I would get home, and with 2 small kids, it was like the same thing. Like, I remember one of my kids, she was playing with the light switch like over and over and over again. And I was like, don't do that. I'm like, do you understand? Yes, sir. And it was like 2 seconds later, she flipped it, and I gave her the old knife hand. And like, I was very stressed out at the time. Yeah. It was like, I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, I had to go to the back bedroom, because it was just me and the kids. My wife was working.
Yeah.
And it was rough.
What was it like getting out? How'd you make that switch from being active duty to veteran?
So I moved my wife and kids back to South Carolina in November of 20.
Okay.
So I was kind of by myself for like the last 6 months, which it was middle of duck season. So it was honestly great, because I ducked kind of every minute I could.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, that made it easier because they were already back here. She had family here in South Carolina. But I went through one of the programs. I can't, Airstreams Renewable was the name of it. So I was going to look to work on either solar, wind, or telecom. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a solid job when I get out. And so I had a pretty good plan. And a lot of guys, like, they wait until the last second to start all their paperwork. And I was like, no, to hell with that. It was like anything, as soon as I could start paperwork, I started it, which I think made the transition so much easier because I wasn't worried about anything else. I was done. It was like, all right, here's your DD 214. I'll see you later. But it was like you had as soon as you were a year out, you could start. I don't remember all the technical stuff, but it was like, all right, I started that paperwork. And then 6 months out, you could do this paperwork. So I just did everything, including all my VA stuff prior to. So that really made the transition a lot easier. And then I went to work for a solar company for the first 6 months I was out. And the guy who owned the company and his number two man, they were both retired Army colonels in the infantry. And I told him, I was like, dude, I'm done with the whole traveling and being gone. I was like, I don't mind a week or two at a time. Like, I welcome that, especially you guys paying per diem.
Yeah.
And so I was excited for it, and like things were going really well. It was completely new to me. I only had, the 6 weeks of schooling that I had before I got out, which wasn't necessarily geared as much towards the solar industry. And I'd done a couple other small classes, but I was excited. I'm like, the world is obviously going this way, so this is going to be a good thing for my future. And I was excited. They're paying me decent, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, we want you to switch positions to go with the electricians. And I was like, well, we're a small company, so like, and it's all pretty much almost all, for the most part, mostly government contracts. So it's like they were all over the place, anywhere from Hawaii to here. And I was like, well, they're gone all the time, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, like, did I do anything wrong? They're like, no, you've been doing great. And I'm like, well, shit, like. And so that was kind of a gut punch. I was like, there was no like loyalty. I was like, I've been, I'm here and that part was really frustrating, especially with two guys at the head of the company who obviously knew, being gone all the time. And like, I was like, I'm not doing that. So I was like, I was pretty down. And then I think my father-in-law, like, I don't know how for whatever reason, how he saw it, but there was an opening at the fire department here in town. And I was like, damn, I don't want to go back like into like the service, so to speak, where it's like, you don't have a normal schedule and, you're working weekends and holidays. And I was like, damn, like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, all right, I went to the interview and it seemed, they seemed to like me. And it was like, I think I got home and like less than an hour later, they called me and they're like, hey, we just pretty much got to run by, chief, but like, we'd love for you to come work. I was like, all right. And my captain, one of the first things he said to me, like when I got hired on, like one of my first couple of shifts was like, if you're looking for a department with a lot of action, he's like, this isn't it. I'm like, dude, like I've already had
you've done
fair
your
share
part of that. Yeah.
Adventures. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm good. And so it's honestly been, it was a blessing. There's no other way to put it. Like it's been great. We're a tiny department. There's only like 14 of us total. And it's been great. Like you do get a lot of the like same kind of camaraderie, not quite on the same scale. I do get to do some cool stuff. Like I've been interior on, I don't know, 7 or 8 fires or so now I graduated the academy last May. So in that time I've got to go fight fire and seen some cool stuff and some crazy stuff. And so it's been great. And like I said, didn't want to go back into the service stuff, but
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. Like, this is what I'll do until I'll do this for another 20 years and retire.
That's cool, man. I mean, so many of us get out, we miss the camaraderie. We like that's the number one thing I hear about that. And it sounds like you're fortunate enough to land in that career field where you still can have a version of that. So it's not going from, living at the barracks or, being with a squad of dudes who and you can talk about anything with to just nothing. It sounds like a nice kind of in between.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's so much less BS. Just
Yeah.
so much less. Like it's funny. We still have some annual training and stuff we got to do, and like I think we have to do cyber awareness. I don't remember. I don't know if we have cyber awareness here, but actually at the solar job, we had the actual cyber awareness stuff, the same thing that we had in the Marine Corps, and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But it's been great. Like you have your stuff here and there, but we're such a small department that you're on a first name basis with everybody, and less paperwork and less waiting around time, and it's 24 hours on, 48 hours off. So it's only a few minutes from the house. So it's been great for me.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you there. And so it gave you enough time to, pursue your hobbies, hunt, fish, be with the family, and found Pattern Pros. So tell us about how you got into that.
So it's with two of my buddies that I met there at Camp Pendleton, and we all just kind of started hunting together. One of them, he's our gun nut, does all our product stuff. He was an armor at the instructor unit I was at, and I remember I was talking to somebody about duck decoys, and he like perks up and looks at me and goes, you can duck hunt here. He's from Oklahoma. Like that's all he's ever known, duck hunting. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I was like, I'd duck hunt like a mile from here. And he goes, well, what the heck? And like, so it was like pretty much like in Step Brothers.
Yeah.
Like, did we just become best friends?
Best friends. Yep.
And it was like, yes. And then our other buddy, he was an engineer, but it was heavy equipment. His two daughters are like pretty much the exact same ages as my two daughters. And we met at one of their like little soccer type things they had on base. Yeah. So our wives are really close, and our kid, like every time we see each other, our kids they play, and so Brody got out. He was the armor. He got out in 2019, I think, or early 20. I can't remember. And then Christian got out a few months before I did. And so we just, we talk all the time. And Brody was talking about different shotgun shells, and was frustrated. And I remember him and I were on the phone. I was like, well, dude, like, why don't we do something about it? Like, let's change this.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of started bouncing ideas back and forth on the phone. It was like, all right, what if we put a bunch of different shells in the same box together? That way you don't have to go buy so many different boxes of shells, which gets freaking expensive. And I was like, it's all right there in front of you. And it was like, all right. Like that's a good idea. Let's do it. And so I started to talk with a few friends and family who are hunters. And I was like, is there anything out there like this? And they all kind of had that puzzled look on their face. Like, no, like this, like my brother-in-law was like, no, like he was like, holy shit. Like I've never heard anything like it.
Yeah.
And I think I called Brody back then like the next day, and I was like, dude, let's do it. We're doing it. And so, we started talking with Christian about it, and it was just like, all right, yeah. Like that was in the fall, or probably October, November timeframe last year. And then we went down to Brody's place in January for 5 days of duck hunting, and we officially formed the LLC.
Oh, that's perfect, man. So a lot of the listeners here, like myself, are like, well, they're either haven't gone hunting before and are looking into it. A lot of vets in our audience. And then like me, this is only my third season. So break it down for like a newbie. Like what's the advantage of combining a bunch of different, type of shells in one box to be able to do it, and what it means to like pattern a shotgun, what the advantages.
So what we did is we took cut 8 different types of shell and put 3 shells of each into a single box. You get 24 shells in a single box. In order for you to go try out, that many brands of ammo is going to cost you, with shipping, is going to cost you over $300.
Oh yeah.
So with the amount of different types of guns, the amount of different types of choke tubes, the amount of different types of freaking shells, your possibilities are just about endless. And for whatever reason, those shells interact differently. They all interact differently with certain shotguns, certain choke tubes. I don't know why. That's above me. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some kind of science to it. But so, when we were in Pendleton, it's like we don't have a whole lot of money. At the time, you're just kind of buying whatever the hell's on the shelf, and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
you're like, I've shot this before. I've killed birds. You're like, all right, probably be fine. But as you actually start to go shoot, there'll be times where like, damn, how the hell did I miss that? How did I
Yeah.
miss that bird? And then when you actually start to go shoot and put it on paper, actually shooting targets, especially at any kind of distance, like even at 20 yards, which for bird hunters is a chip shot.
Yeah, it's ideal.
You will see holes in your pattern. Like you will literally see spots where there is no BBs. And so I think so many people are just like, well, it's a shotgun. It shoots it just scatters BBs out there. And
yeah, it should be all the same, right?
yeah. And in the simple terms, yes, that's what it does, but it's not exactly where you aim. So like my 870 that I use for my turkey and upland bird gun, it shoots a little high.
Okay.
So there are things. It's called a shim. That's more or Brody's aspect, where it's actually like I think a little piece of plastic, a little piece of metal that you can get for your gun that'll actually change the way that gun shoots. So like some guns
Change
will
the
shoot
angle of it a little bit.
Yes. But what we did is just allow you in such a cheaper way to find a shell that shoots good out of your shotgun than it ever would be to go actually buy even half of those
Yeah.
boxes of shells. And you may only like maybe a couple of those boxes or several of those boxes shoot like real shitty. And so you're like, I'm never going to use that. And they just sit up on your shelf. Well, so for $59.99, you get a box. So you get, over $300 worth of value. And then we actually sell the targets as well. So they're big. I think it's 36 by 48 inch paper targets. And then it's got a little sticker down the bottom left-hand corner. And you can put all of your information about the shotgun, the shell, the choke, all kinds of stuff. And you can actually compare all of that. So maybe if you can't, hey, I know this shell shoots good, but you, for whatever reason, you go and you can't find it. You're like later down the road, you have all that information. You're like, this is something that I can look for.
Yeah.
Something that a shell is this kind of weight, this amount of feet per second. Maybe you can find out what kind of watt it has in there, and it'll allow you to actually find the right shell. And so what we're really trying to change is how people go about shooting shotguns. It was Delta Waterfowl that put out a study a few years ago. It was like on average 1.7 million ducks every year get crippled. And I don't know exactly how they come up with that number. They're smarter than I am. So our goal is to not only are you going to allow hunters to bring home more birds because they have a shell that's going to pattern better, you're also going to prevent cripples. And on the grand scheme, that is our goal. So out of that 1.7 million ducks, if we could prevent 10% of that, which I think is on the severe low end of what we have the potential to do, that's 170,000 ducks that are going to go back into the breeding population.
Yes.
And all of these studies that go, hey, bird numbers are down. Well, a lot, millions of dollars gets paid towards Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl every year, as it should, because they do phenomenal things. But when it comes down to the individual hunter, we're not doing our job. If you're a bow hunter or you're a rifle hunter, the first thing you're going to go do is you're going to go shoot that gun, and it's going to be zero. It's going to be on.
Dial it in. Yeah.
And turkey hunters are about the only people with a shotgun that actually do that, and even then, not all of them do it. So for whatever reason, waterfowlers, for the most part, don't. There are some people that do it, and that's good on them. But
it's
even
the exception, though, you're right. It's not the rule; it's the exception.
Yeah. People. And so even when at the G&H decoy show that we just did on Saturday, there was 3 or 4 people that came up to us and were like, where were you guys 10, 15 years ago? They're like, I've spent thousands of dollars on ammunition trying to figure out what's what. And so you got guys that, maybe they're changing up shotguns. Yeah. And they're like, they're trying to figure out what works. And we give you such an easy fix to a potentially very expensive problem.
Yeah.
And unless you go change your choke tube or your gun, that out of those 8 brands, you're going to have one that patterns the best. But then you're also going to have, a couple others that probably still pattern pretty darn good. And now that's there for you to use for forever. It's nothing's changing. Yeah. So unless you go get a new gun, that's the shell that you can go use instead of trying out so many different shells. And it's also where it's now you go buy a case of shells instead of, which is cheaper, per box.
Yeah.
Sure. Hey, I'm going to buy a case, but it's justified because I know that I don't need to switch up. I'm not going to keep trying other shells.
Yeah.
So there's a small upfront cost compared to your, $1,000 waders or even $500 waders and your $800,000 shotgun and and your $10,000, $20,000 duck boat. And it's like, it's such a small price to pay to actually know what your gun is going to do at the moment of truth.
Well, and my way of thinking, it's probably the only way this could have been figured out and marketed was, through Marines, because this is like the most improvise, adapt, and overcome kind of fucking ever. I love it, man.
I talked with a buddy 2 days ago, and he was we'd done a podcast with him, and he was saying, I've been telling people about this stuff. I'm like, yeah, did you tell him that 3 special ed Marines are the ones that came up with it? And he's like, no, he's like, I didn't want to make him feel too bad. So
yeah, dude. Because Marine Corps, I don't know about when you were in, but when I was in, we were doing, I think it's time honored tradition, doing more with less, just figuring out, okay, well, this gear isn't exactly going to work for what we're trying to do. So what can we do? And back in the day of like, we didn't have, like lights for, our rifles. We just got the A4 with a rail system. So and we're like, well, I guess we're, duct taping mag lights to our stock and see what happens. Duct tape them directly to the barrel, see what happens. And that was the day of that. So this is like doing that, except smart and effective. And yeah, I can't wait to see how you guys take off, because I can only imagine, once people figure out, like you get the few people who are like walking away. It sounds like a lot of the people you're talking about, we were talking earlier before the show, were leaving your booth at this G&H decoy expo and saying like, huh, and just kind of mystified, like how, like it was like a mind fuck. Like, of course I should have done this. Like, this makes so much sense, but they'd never thought about it before.
Yeah, they're really confused, and like so many people it really is such a simple concept.
Yeah,
and people are like, well, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah,
but it's just like there's so many inventions like that, like throughout the day. And the one that I constantly refer to is like the Ring camera, where
Yeah.
it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I put a camera in front of my door to see who's there?
Yeah.
And that guy's made an absolute shit ton of money
Oh,
off of
dude.
that. And the fact that I mean, if I could duck hunt every single day, I would.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fact that we have a chance to really, we're stepping into that realm is it's kind of like a little kid's dream. You're like, I get to go on work trips
Yeah.
and just be around a bunch of other hunters. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's so
and
cool,
it's
man.
just, so like stepping into it has been, I mean, we've only done the one show, but we've got a couple others on the horizon. And it's just like, all right, this is pretty sweet. Like, just completely kind of mind blown that this is what we're getting a chance to do. But the more we introduce it to people and the more people actually go shoot and put it on paper and start to understand that there is a difference, even at 20 yards, but especially at 30 and 40 yards,
Yeah.
that it will start to become more of a second nature, because it's such a new idea that people really don't know that they need it yet. They're like, that's a
Hmm.
really good idea, but they're not like, hey, take my money. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
some people who grasp it, um, they're like, oh yes, let's do it right now. Or the guys that spent $1,000 on different shotgun shells over the years, and so those are the people that get it. So we're just trying to make it more of a, a broad thing where everyone, it becomes second nature to go do it. And
Yeah.
so our biggest step to do that is probably going to be a fairly long process, but to actually implement more things into hunter's education. Like we talked, it was like
Yes.
most people were not taught about shotgun patterning when they did hunter's ed, and even if they did, it was probably a very brief synopsis of like, yeah, like you should go pattern, you should try different shells and go pattern a shotgun.
Yeah.
Well, it's not talked about. So even if we could spend like, I mean, they could probably do it in no more than an hour, probably less, and adding that into it, where they could give each student one shell and shoot it at 30 yards or so, and just to put it on paper, and then to have them look at it and be like, hey, this is actually what's happening. It's not, that gun isn't going to shoot a perfect circle exactly where you're aiming. So you
Yeah.
trying to hit a duck that's going 20, 30 miles an hour and isn't very, like a teal, which is a tiny little target,
Exactly, dude.
you're out there just wasting ammo. It's like, well, you got up, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know where it might be cold as hell. You've done all these other things. Like, you might, like, just go do this one time, and it's gonna make the world difference. And so as soon as we get it into that realm, it's going to have people realize that that's just what they should do. And so once you get people to start that in the beginning of their hunting career, most likely most of them, hopefully all of them, but unlikely, will do that for the rest of their hunting career, because they know it makes a difference and it's something that they've started with.
Yeah. It just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Cause I mean, the way I'm shooting, I'm of course trying out a new ammo this year, bought it before I ever heard of this. And it's like, all right, well, I hope this works. Hope this is better, but it's just a hope. And you spend that time, it's a mind fuck when you're sitting in the duck blind or in the marsh and you're like, well, hope it works. But this sounds
Yep.
like a way of taking that guesswork out of it. And it sounds like you guys are probably just a few, like the hunters ed and safety would be great. And it sounds like maybe even you're just a couple like YouTube influencers who are like podcasts away from, a couple people taking off. And then the rest of everybody else who follows the influencers and follows those voices out in the public and be like, oh yeah, exactly. This is what we're doing now. And it just takes off. So like the spark's going to be lit. It's just a matter of like when that happens. And I'm excited to see that for you guys.
Yeah. So like starting out, it's hard to get people, not necessarily to always respond. I mean, there's been plenty of people that just haven't responded.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's here, no, here and there. But Like there's a few YouTubers that I've reached out to, and I've got a hold of, I think, one or two of them. But it's I mean, we're still so brand. I mean, we started this 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So we actually got published in the current issue of Ducks Unlimited.
Saw
So
that. Yeah.
We're in them actually in Ducks Unlimited magazine, which was like such a surreal thing, because like, holy shit, like we're in like the duck hunting holy grail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like our targets and our boxes. But it just, again, just continuing to find more outlets. And so I've reached out to podcasts, and that's been a great way to get our stuff out there. But yeah, if we could get it into the people who have more of those influencers, it puts it out real quick. And for whatever reason, with today's society, that people see influencers and like, that's what I need to go do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
whether that's
whether like, and that's not always a bad thing. Obviously, hopefully in our part of it would be an awesome thing. So if we can get it into those people's hands, like that'd be huge. But it is hard, and it's like we're new, so new that most people haven't heard of us yet. So it's like who are you? What kind of gimmick are you selling? And
yeah, exactly. What is this widget?
Yes,
you're putting out. Well, that's awesome, man. It's been cool to connect with you. I look forward to just hearing how it goes, and then hopefully getting you back on the show as you guys continue to grow and continue to find success. Maybe talk mid-season about duck hunting a little more and what else you guys are doing. But I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you being here this morning.
Yeah, thanks, man. This was it's been great. Where do you duck hunt at?
I'm mostly, so I live in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. We got a local Sonoma Napa Marsh out here in wine country. We hunt there, and I hunt out of the refuges, Sac, Calusa up there, and then
Grizzly Island.
What's that?
Grizzly Island.
Grizzly Island. Yep. Grizzly Island indeed. Love that place.
I was so far away from there that I went there, but it was I went through the CWA Veteran Hunt Program.
Yeah.
When I was still in, and I hunted I think it's Duck Club Denverton, which is
only, yes,
not far away. But I had one of my best friends growing up. He's a wildlife biologist. He actually did work on Grizzly Island. So he came and picked me up and showed me around there. And it looked like an awesome place.
It's wild, man. It's like compared to like, I don't know, the refuge system here, you get your lottery, your number for when you can, pick your blind or spot or whatever. And Grizzly Island, your number doesn't matter. It's whenever you line up with your truck the night before. Spend the night in that line.
Oh yeah, the sweat line was such a stressful thing. It was always like, well, are we going to duck hunt today, or did I just wake up at midnight for no damn reason?
Exactly, I know.
God, I hated it. But I hunted at I did one hunt at Kern, and then hunted at San Jacinto a number of times, and then really my last year there, I hunted a lot at Worcester, which is out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. But I was that last season. Friday I had the car packed up. As soon as we were off, I'd go to my car, grab my stuff. I'd go into the office. I'd change into whatever clothes. I'd drive 3 hours. I'd hunt either all day Saturday or until I limited out. And then from there, I would leave. I'd drive 3 hours back, and then I would hunt Pendleton Sunday morning.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
So I did it. I did not get a whole lot of sleep that year.
Yeah.
Like I remember when the season was done, I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm sleeping. I slept probably till like noon, Saturday, because I was just like, my body's like, I'm putting you to sleep, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, we're tapped out. We need a little reset.
It was like all the energy drinks, were like, they were doing nothing. Like some of the drives home from Worcester, it was like, I was like, this is, I'm struggling right now. And I'm by myself almost every trip except for maybe one or two. And it was just like, it was rough, but I killed a ton of ducks that year. Like, I mean, just, and it was like every Saturday I was killing a pintail, killing a bunch of cinnamon teal. It was, I had an awesome season. It was,
that's so
it
cool.
was pretty fun.
Yeah, I got my first cinnamon last year, up right near Grizzly, actually part of Grizzly, a special part of Joyce Island. It was sweet, man. Well, if we ever get you out here for whatever reason for an expo or something, hopefully we can link up and go kill some ducks, man. Because we got some decent spots out here. It's California is a unique place for many reasons, of course, but the duck hunting is pretty solid.
I tell people that. I'm like, dude, duck hunting, and like here in South Carolina, it for the most part, duck hunting sucks. And I tell people, dude, the duck hunting was great in California. And they look at you really like, the hell you I'm like, I know California's California, but the duck hunting was great. I killed the hell out of them.
Oh yeah. It's like there's coastal California and like the big cities. And then there's the rest of California, which people don't think about too much. And you're like, yeah, no, there's places outside of California that aren't the beach or Lake Tahoe. There's a lot in the middle. And
I tell people, I was like, there are two cities. I was like, it's LA and San Francisco. I was like, those for the most part, other than those, it's like California is pretty normal. And I also say, without those two cities, Democrats would never win a single presidential election.
No kidding, man. It'd be a lot different landscape.
I'm like, yeah, like people look at it, I say that, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, that's a lot of votes. And I was like, you go ahead and you go look at it. Here's the numbers. And I'm like, yeah, California for the most part, just normal, like farmers and hunters. And I was like, and military guys. And that's most of what you got.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bizarre. People can't think of it that way until they actually go and see it. And I'll tell you, like, I didn't have much of an appreciation for the Central Valley until I started hunting, and just, I mean, anyone who's spent, even one sunrise in the marsh can attest, like, yeah, this is pretty country out here. This is real pretty country.
I love it.
Well, brother, it's good to talk with you. Look forward to catching up, and seeing how your season goes, how everything takes off, and when we can get you back on here. So thanks again. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And until then, drink water, meditate, kill bodies. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this week of Transitions from War. Go ahead and subscribe to the show, follow it. Find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can email me, mike@transitionsfromwar.com, with any questions or ideas for the show. And please send the show to people you know who might need to listen to it. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes if you get a chance. And just thanks for listening. All right, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.